And hello, welcome back to the Gay Racing Podcast. Zack and Alex are back with you. Hope everyone's been enjoying their little break from motorsports, but I know we did. Yeah. Yeah. It's been great. I've actually been watching the Olympics. Probably won't talk about that today, but Alex, why are we here? We don't have any races to talk about, so why are we here today?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about IndyCar because I'm concerned. I have a lot of concerns, right? Yeah, right. And I just want to talk about it with you. And we also have a special guest joining us. If you'd like to bring him in, Zach, that is Jackson Lambros of Outlap Media, as well as Grid Network.
I knocked my mic, ignore that.
Yeah, because Jackson knocked his mic. That's why we're going to talk about this. But just IndyCar. Is it in danger? Jackson, I think you are more huffing some hopium over there.
100%.
I feel I'm kind of like, I'm off the boat. I'm sailing away in despair. But I want to feel energized about IndyCar.
Alex has been very moody about IndyCar lately.
I'm aware
of his texts.
So I'm going through the notes, and I know there's a little bit of bias.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at the Twitter tag as well. Yeah. So how much do we think that this despair is because Joseph Newgarden has fallen off despite having another Borg Warner face? I'm not saying just fallen off this season.
Oh, it's last season.
No, you're right.
Last season, okay, you can't say he had a bad... Saying he had a bad season last year is wild if you look at the oval performance. Objectively. Like, he choked all the way. He
in
only
terms
choked
of how he normally does. Yeah. You're right. And that's kind of the question I want to answer for myself today. Is like, am I just a mad Joseph Newgarden fan? Or is the actual series having issues? Or is it both? Or am I just crazy? Like that's what this episode's about. And shout out to Zack for pushing me to do it. I've been talking about this since June. So I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while. So here we are.
I'm getting the vibe right now that you are like the one very concerned about this, and me and Zack are going to kind of play therapist here to kind of break this down for you.
I just like getting messy.
Okay, we can do that. We can also do that. We can totally do that.
Mess. I don't play teams.
I mean, Zach's the one who's been calling Joseph washed for a couple years now to get under my skin, but now it's reality, and I'm a little mad about that. But
it is a good thing to bring up about the possible bias for you, Alex. Like, is it really just... But I'm also a Joseph fan, though. I've kind of been feeling my interest in IndyCar decline since like about, I honestly want to say 2022. And that's kind of when Joseph, started declining a little bit, like especially on the road courses, to where he wasn't really in contention to win every week, So I'm wondering if that's a true statement for myself as well. But as we're going to talk about today, there are like legitimate things about IndyCar that like stuff that's kind of worn that and stuff that's kind of shown up this season. Thermal Club was a bit of a breaking or boiling point for a lot of people in the industry. And, these new hybrid units, the racing product questionably getting worse, all that crazy stuff.
And to go off that, Zach, like I love IndyCar. I mean, if you've known me for a while, you know I love IndyCar. Like that, I used to call it my baby. I love the drivers. I love the series. I
Best
think
racing in the world. That's what we used to call it.
Can be good. And I think you could say that until like 2 years ago, that it was like the best. But I'm just frustrated about it. That's why we're going to talk about it. But I kind of want to hear what you guys think. We kind of get an idea. But like, how are we feeling about IndyCar in general? Like, let's do a little vibe check. Jackson, let's start with you. What do you think?
I think considering the cards that IndyCar has been dealt, it's doing a fantastic job. I think it's back on the wall financially, and especially compared to competition right now, it's doing the best with the resources it's got. I was thinking about this earlier. If you had a kid when they first introduced this chassis, you would have a 12-year-old at this point. The DW12 chassis has gone through 3 aero kits, 3 engines technically. They dropped Lotus, addition of an aero screen, and now a hybrid system. We're making this car do things it was never intended to do.
True.
And I think we'll break this down a little bit more, but I think considering we're using a lot of outdated stuff, not only is that giving teams like a chance to refine it and kind of master that, because the last frontier is dampers, and that's kind of the big difference now for everybody. But once we get new cars that were built to have aero screens and hybrid systems, I think the racing package is going to be a lot better. But we'll break that down more. I want to start with this, Zach, because we started talking literally 2 minutes ago. Do we have a favorite driver? Do we have any camps that we support? I know you mentioned Newgarden, but what else we got going here?
Like in terms of like drivers I like or teams I like. I mean, in general, I like Team Penske. I used to be a Ganassi fan. In general, I feel very neutral on a lot of the IndyCar field.
Okay.
Like, and that's kind of just me with all motorsports. Like, I'm kind of, especially as I kind of took this more, I'm a podcaster. I got to like have something to talk about. I kind of try to look at it from a more neutral perspective. And I think my problem, and what's always I've kind of had a feeling about IndyCar, is it always feels like such a B tier series. It's like it gets compared to NASCAR, and it's like it doesn't have the weekly or the frequency of a schedule that NASCAR has. It doesn't maybe have obviously the amount of oval racing, maybe the star power that NASCAR has. So when it gets compared to NASCAR, you kind of see some things that it's missing. And then obviously on the other end, it will get also compared to stuff like Formula One, right? And Formula One has, more of a global star power. And there's certainly a lot of international stars in IndyCar, but IndyCar just doesn't have that glitz and glamour, right? I mean, you just see like Victory Lane at Mid-Ohio, and it's just what are we doing?
It's an interesting conundrum. Sorry, Zach, I'm jumping in here, but it feels like
I cut Alex off every week.
Okay, gotcha. I do that on Grid. So awesome.
Yep.
It's hard for F1 fans to get into IndyCar because it's not as hoity-toity and like prim and proper, and it's hard for some NASCAR fans to get into it because it's not as hardcore, like wheel-to-wheel melee, inches from each other every single lap. And I still think that's a major advantage because it's just, in my opinion, super like natural racing, like racing in its purest form.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the big issue is a lot of things that were kind of its advantage, everything else is kind of taken away from it. It used to be considered such an international series, not necessarily in races, but in driver talent. And I think especially NASCAR and Formula One have done a great job of expanding on that. The big one, diversity of tracks, right? Road courses and ovals. And I think the big one was there was nothing faster on a street circuit, especially in America. And obviously we've got F1 in Vegas now. And I think NASCAR in Chicago is a big, big threat to something that was, exclusive to IndyCar racing.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I think when you put all of that together, it's unfortunate, especially if we were having this conversation 40 years ago, American open wheel racing by and large was the form of racing that people would know and watch in America. And then, late 80s, early 90s, we started fighting over who gets to race at the 500 and who gets to own it. And we had the Civil War, and we're still, picking up the pieces from that.
Honestly.
And IndyCar has done a great job, but that is still something we've not fully recovered from since 2008 objectively. So and I could give you a whole hour lecture on how that's hurt the culture of IndyCar and American open wheel racing in a whole, and the whole identity crisis IndyCar has had.
Well, because I feel like the series role plays as this huge world-class event or world-class series for 2 weeks out of the year in the month of May, right? It role plays as that, but then we just don't see any of that energy, right? As soon as that week passes, we'll go to Detroit the next week, and it's just another old race that it's gaining less and less interest.
Dope. So I'm throwing both of you on a plane in April, and I'm going to show you where this is actually true, and you're going to go and see Long Beach, where even if the race is consistently like on or off, I think if you ask any driver, it's one of the best crowds in racing.
That's true.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's fair.
But even then, outside of Long Beach and Indy, it's still just kind of like there's just nothing. Just that the energy is just not there anywhere else, really. And, a lot of people clamor for more ovals. People don't show up to them. That's why a lot of them went away. Yeah. It's frustrating. And I think a lot of that, you can go back to the marketing and everything for IndyCar. And they have made improvements on that. That was something Zack, since we started the podcast, that's something I've been railing on IndyCar is like, marketing, please market it. And then they start doing that and mention.
Okay, I see Zack moving, so that's not just me.
Yeah, Alex, hello.
Okay.
Welcome back.
In the racing product.
Oh,
he's back. Sorry, Alex, you froze.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to run that back.
Yeah, run it back. Run it back, sir. What were you saying?
Okay. Okay. So I was going on IndyCar about their marketing, right?
Right.
That was Roger Penske. That was Roger Penske attacking.
Yeah, he didn't want you to talk. He knows. You're being silenced.
But train of thought. So I was going on their marketing ever since started the podcast, right? And then they made improvements. And then we were talking with J.R. Hildebrand about this about 2 years ago now. And he told us saying, hey, the racing product is brilliant right now, but if they make adjustments elsewhere, that could impact what you're seeing with the racing product. And we were just kind of, Zach, I think you and I were like kind of confused, like, how is that? But I think we're kind of seeing it right now with the hybrids, because the hybrids is a huge marketing thing. Maybe it's just for the manufacturers and it's like, hey, PR, we have hybrids, but it's definitely taken a toll on the whole vibe of the IndyCar series, and not even before the hybrids. It's just off,
I'm curious what Zack has to think here, but I can throw something in. I still think that, considering where we were at the start of the season, for hybrids for Alex Rossi to say at the start of the season, if we were to all run hybrids at St. Pete, like 6 of us would finish. And for Mid-Ohio, for us to only have one actual retirement, and even then to get that car back out on track, no mechanical issues. I think that alone is a massive achievement. And there's still obviously tech gremlins. We saw that at Iowa.
Yeah.
Hello, voice. There's still obviously tech gremlins that were like working around with this, but I think consistency has been awesome. It's just the issue is it's not a manufacturer thing because it's a spec part of the car. So it's not a Honda or Chevy thing. It's collabed by them, but again, there's no technical advantage on that. And on top of that, like, yes, you're able to kind of have some sense of strategy for it. But especially like at Iowa, drivers were saying like it was almost no factor, especially in the race.
I felt like at Mid-Ohio, it wasn't much of a factor either, though. Like strategically, it's like because
it was just an annoyance because of the graphic on TV.
The supercapacitor
exactly where we
so much charge, like it's not going to hold that much charge to make a difference. Like long term, playing some kind of strategy.
Can I get Zack to explain to me what a supercapacitor is instead of a battery really quick? Because I was
oh my gosh, I get to do this again.
Yes, you do. Because I was talking to Seb. I was talking to Seabass about the Cadillac DPI in Long Beach, and he was like, we couldn't have anyone ride shotgun because they would be sitting on the supercapacitor. So the floor is yours. Tell me what a supercapacitor is, good sir.
I just know it's not like a Alex. I just know it's not like a traditional battery like you would see in like a normal hybrid car, whether on the street or, Formula One, a lithium ion battery that can actually hold like a lot of charge.
Okay.
Like F1, for example, they can charge a battery for like a few laps to get it to 100%. IndyCar, because it's a supercapacitor, because they didn't have a lot of space in this 12-year-old chassis, they had to go with the supercapacitor. They couldn't put a whole battery in it. And a supercapacitor can't hold as much charge. Like I think, from my understanding, it only takes a few corners at Mid-Ohio to charge up the supercapacitor.
It's much more of a lap by lap basis.
Yeah, like it's so it's kind of just like a second little throttle button. You just press it on the straightaways.
Exactly. Okay,
which is like, yes.
Okay, thank you. So going back to that, I feel like a lot of people were saying it's over, but I feel like we were never given an opportunity where we really got to see it be as much of a factor, because I think Iowa, even with Indy, like Iowa is the most momentum focused track on the series. You're lifting maybe like 2% of the time. I don't know if you've ever driven the IR18 at Iowa, Zach, on iRacing, but it's like
a little bit.
Almost flat out the entire time.
It's crazy. It's insane. Yeah.
Mid-Ohio, I'd say pretty much the same. I mean, it's not as much a start. Kind of. A lot of straightaways, and there's not as much of a stop-start as like
yeah, it's very flowy.
It's a lot like, I would say, like Road America, or I guess Watkins Glen on the Cup cars. So what I was really excited for was Toronto, because super tight technical street circuit.
True. More heavy.
Staying on top of the tires is everything, and I think, especially on that one kind of straightaway, like that's your big passing opportunity, and I think getting a better exit on other guys was going to be the deciding factor. So I was like, this could be the biggest opportunity for hybrids to shine. And I personally feel like we saw a lot more side-to-side racing down there. And that could totally be placebo. But I think in general, no one's going to care about that compared to Santino Ferrucci flying. But
yeah, right. And I guess that's my next question, because the next race is Gateway, and they had a test there with the hybrids, and a lot of the drivers said that it doesn't seem promising. You had Ed Carpenter say after Iowa that all the ovals are going to be like this, and he wouldn't be against if they took the hybrid out rest of the year. And I know it's very early, but the Indianapolis 500 next year, like, is there some concerns about how that race could go? Like, that's just been in the back of my mind, right? Because one, I'm going to Gateway and I'm going to Indy 500 next year. I'm like, am I gonna get my money?
Bring a pillow.
Like, my interest is already dwindling, but I'm just, you know what I mean? But I will say, I do agree with you on Toronto. I do think that was better than Mid-Ohio, for sure.
I enjoyed that race.
100%, but we got to ask ourselves for Toronto, and we can talk about this later. We don't have to go into this. How much of that was just that being NASCAR term, yellow flag merchant, right? For that being a good race. But
yeah,
I think you got to give huge ups to Firestone for what they've had to do this whole season, because IndyCar was like, we need you guys to make a tire that's able to handle, at least 200 more pounds of load. And they're like, we got you. And they were like, hey, can you do that for Iowa and also maybe make these tires indestructible, because we don't know what DEG is going to be like. And they're like, say no more, fam. And then like 2 months before racing, they were like, hey, so funny story, Cup guys showed up. They were crying about it, so we repaved just half the track.
Just half.
We don't know if that's gonna be an issue. But if you guys like want to do more testing, so what I'm getting at here is the issue is Firestone has had to make a tire that's able to handle all of this extra weight in this car, and that's got to be top priority over tire wear, and that being the thing that adds spice in this race now. Because the minute you make a tire that's going to have more fall off, you're risking something catastrophic. Exactly.
It's not like a stock car where
we can't do Martinsville.
If Ryan Preece blows a tire, he'll be okay, right? You can't have Stingray Rob blow a tire because he's going to go into the stratosphere with these cars. Like, we just can't have that. There's a huge difference.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do we fix this? It's not taking away aero. We tried it at Iowa. It worked kind of, but not really.
And there's not much to take away in general. I mean,
the
you can't remove the aero screen.
I know I'm coming at you guys with hopium, but I think the genuine way we got to approach this is it's going to take time for Firestone to take this data and, give us some kind of compound that's going to have a fall off, but a fall off that's not going to be catastrophic, especially when we're talking, going into T1 at Indy at 240. We can't risk, we can't risk a Sebastian Bourdais in 2017 or a Gordon Smiley kind of incident just so we can have good racing. And I think all the guys understand that. So
I will say, Jackson, regarding hybrids, I think you've kind of sold me on that. It's like it's a bit early. Like I think was it Toronto, Zach, where we were like, we don't know if IndyCar even needs hybrids because it's just like they just kind of added it to add it. But I don't know. I feel like it is kind of early.
I still have that feeling because I just feel like it just felt like a marketing thing still. Like
and it is, but at the same time, I think Jackson is right here.
I don't think it really changed the racing.
And I'll say this: it's not something. If we find out that this is something that genuinely, we could have this talk again halfway through 25 or 26 and be like, this is doing nothing for us. And this is not apples to apples, but World Rally Championship integrated hybrid systems into their Rally 1 cars, and they, at the end of the day, realized this is doing nothing for our product, on stage, and all it's doing is really, it's just adding a massive, paycheck to teams at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And that's not something that necessarily makes rallying. And again, we could be talking next year where, this is something that totally is like could become a huge playing factor in races. Like the hybrid system that GTP has in IMSA right now in the World Endurance Championship, class, love it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's had enough testing, and that's already been a part of endurance racing with LMP1 and everything else, where guys are used to that. And they've gotten it in a really cost-effective, reliable package, and it's not been put together. Like it hasn't been shipped out halfway. I'm just kind of yapping at this point. I need someone to pull me out.
I mean, like, for me, it's like if IndyCar is going to do this, do it right. You don't half-ass it, because it does feel like a very redneck way of trying to get a hybrid. And I love your example of, IndyCar's done things before. Like, remember when they copied like a bunch of NASCAR rules, like double file restarts, right?
Yes.
They did that for a few years. Then they realized, you know what? We can't do this. So they took it. They went back on it. They have before realized, hey, we kind of made a mistake here. They went back on a decision they made. That's certainly an option. And, is something like hybrids really fitting into the identity of IndyCar in the first place? That's up for the debate. I mean, I could see both sides of it.
I think the best example for car tech, if you want to play that game, Zach, is the aero pods on the rear wheels, the Kardashians, what Marshall Pruitt liked to call them, that went behind the rear wheels.
Yeah, the rear wheel guards.
Because it was supposed to keep cars from hiking up against each other. And then at Indy 500 in 2017, we saw Scott Dixon go to space, and we were like, okay, this isn't doing anything for us. So no, we can adapt and whatnot. I don't think we're going to get to a point where we drop the aero screen and go for like a halo, or we're not going to see that car naked ever again. That it's done way too much good to, go away from that. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future, especially with this next generation of cars, which is hopefully coming in the next couple of years.
Hopefully,
yeah.
Hopefully, if I still have hair left.
Yeah.
hopefully something else can change, and that is the IndyCar schedule as well. And I don't want to get too into this because everyone's talking about the IndyCar schedule, but there's that huge gap at the start of the year. For me, it's just like that's annoying, but like that's in terms of like overall growth. It doesn't personally hurt my thoughts on the series, but it's also just you said it earlier, Jackson, like the diversity of the schedule. It's like having a few more ovals would be nice. Everyone has said those talking points.
It's not that far away from being a really good schedule.
Yeah, it's really 100%. Close.
I think 20 races, maybe more, a tad more compact.
That's got to be the end game for IndyCar, 100%.
Yeah,
definitely.
And more ovals. That's all you need.
Yeah,
I think we can definitely agree on that. And real quick, because Zach, you mentioned Thermal Club earlier. That is back on the schedule next year, but not as a gimmicky all-star race kind of thing. Jackson, you got to cover that. You went to that event. What was like really quickly, like the overall vibe from like the teams, drivers, fans, even at that event? So I'm just kind of curious on that.
Man, it was genuinely a really mixed bag, because you had some crew, some drivers like, facility's awesome, like I heard some people saying like this should be the place for testing. If this is where we're coming consistently for preseason tests, it's the best. We're getting a lot of data on tire deg. We get a good mix of corners. And obviously weather's awesome and the facilities are beautiful or really, really nice. Obviously you guys probably didn't see a lot of fans, but we had there were a lot of people that were actually behind the timing stands. A lot of gentleman drivers that were kind of behind the stands and like interacting with the teams, which I think is really, really cool. It gives you a really one-on-one experience. So, I mean, it was, where do I start with the negatives? I say that in a bad way, but there's definitely people who were saying like, we should be here for like 3 days of testing and get out. There's no point in the all-star race.
Yeah.
But yeah, I genuinely believe that with where this is at right now on the schedule, you've got the potential for something really, really cool. Especially when you yoink the all-star gimmick and you just have a normal race here.
Yeah. I do think the venue's cool. It's just like they were just trying to do way too much with an all-star
No,
race.
100%.
When it's just not what any IndyCar event's supposed to be.
No, 100%.
It was
especially at a road
It was a glorified test session that they tried to make into an event. And I did not watch this because I was very strongly, heavily against it. I thought it was the stupidest thing. I was very moody that day. I think it was the stupidest thing they could have done with all the potential ideas people have thrown out there personally. But I don't mind it being on the actual schedule. So I'm glad it's staying just to like fill something in that part of the schedule. But yeah, I could go on that. There's 2 episodes about Thermal Club on the podcast. If you ever want to go back.
No, I remember how you felt on Grid about it. Yeah, I remember. So really quickly, and then we can drop this, but the big issue obviously was it was USAC style, so two qualifying heats and then a main, and there was this like halftime in the middle, and like obviously the big issue was everyone was kind of playing the waiting game and trying to see if someone was gonna turn on, like really, really push and go through their tires. Because the thing about thermal, really, really fresh pavement, really, really high degradation track. So when you have to keep one set of tires for all, 20 laps? I think it was two 10-lap heats. Yep. Everyone was conserving, and the halftime literally did nothing. It just bunched the field up together, kind of. But there was almost like no passing after turn 1. So what all the drivers were saying was you either need to make pits a factor, or I really liked Alex's idea, Pillow, because he wanted to see like an elimination style where like one driver every lap has to pit, like basically gets black flagged.
Yeah.
And then you regroup at like top 10 for like the last, I don't know, 5 laps.
That'd be cool.
And do a sprint to the end. But I like where this is at. You make it long enough where it's just a tire deg. This is going to be the only tire deg track we have now with the hybrid system.
I guess so.
Because Iowa's gone. This is going to be the only tire deg track we have left. So no size. Iowa's good. You like Iowa. This could genuinely be really cool. Watch this. No. Because watch this. We get Don Cusick on the phone. We're like, hey, we've never had a night road course race ever. He's like, it's a great idea. Let's get some floodlights in here. Let's have like a, Singapore Grand Prix kind of night. Would that not be awesome?
That would be cool.
Don Cusick, I know you're watching Gay Racing Podcast. Get on it, brother.
IndyCar's doing what NASCAR did 30 years ago. Let's add lights.
Let's add lights.
That's everything. Hey, wait, that fixed their all-star race. The lights.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Night.
Yes, exactly.
They're 30 years behind.
Oh no.
I love IndyCar.
If you think people at IndyCar are watching this, they're about to tune out with what I'm about to say here. So IndyCar is going to Fox Sports, and there'll be a streaming option. This is announced since we originally talked about it. It'll be on a new streamer called Venue. It'll cost $42 a month, which includes Fox, Warner content, which includes TNT, as well as Disney stuff. The pro is that all races are going to be on network. And for me, the big red flag here is that NASCAR on Fox is a laughingstock, has just been a complete embarrassment to all of motorsport for the past
they're
good 6
unacceptable.
years. And I'm very concerned that Fox is going to have not only the Indianapolis 500, the most prestigious race in the world. I'm very concerned how they're going to handle her and just the series in general. Yeah.
Pronouns don't exist.
So what I want to know is, I don't actually know the answer to this. Jackson, what do you think of IndyCar going to Fox? I have no idea what you think of this.
I think this is genuinely the best move IndyCar
The
has made in the past.
Let him talk. I want to hear this.
Walk with me. So
okay,
let me cook. Let me cook.
I'll let you cook.
Okay.
The best.
It's on fire already, but okay.
All of the production scares I get, right? Because yes, it felt like Fox was trying to see, like, Fox's NASCAR coverage, not great, which sucks because it was so amazing like 5-10 years ago. But it's going to be IMS Productions in the truck. So for those who don't know, those are the guys and gals and non-binary poles that are already doing all of the, like, we're inclusive in the show.
Yeah, we are.
It's all the guys that are doing replays, cutting cameras, doing all of the production work behind the scenes. So any scares of really bad shots or like all of those production issues, out the window. It's going to be the exact same way. The shows are going to be ran the exact same way they have been for the past, like 7 years now.
Can I make one point about that?
Shoot.
I have a concern about that, because what if Fox says, we paid so much money that we want more control over production?
Already in the contract. It's not it's I'm Roger Penske. This is how we're running the show.
I'm Roger Penske. This is how we do
this is the one big maybe, I think, for everybody, and it's talent. Who are we gonna see in the booth? I think Lee Diffie is having way too much fun in Paris right now to be like, I'm gonna drop this for IndyCar, which totally fair.
Totally.
Yep.
But I think we're going to obviously see some new faces, and I think we'll have a mix of new guys and some new blood in the actual talent side of things, broadcasters, color analysts, pit reporters. As long as they do not copy and paste the guys from NASCAR, like, we cannot have Darrell Waltrip or any. We can't have like DW being like, the cars are going so fast, guys. We can't be doing that. Like, we
look
need
at them
a
hot rods
IndyCar
go.
Exactly. We can't do that. We can't do that.
Yeah.
And as long as you have a fresh group that's like, their love is IndyCar racing, I genuinely think we're going to be fine. This is not my other job is NASCAR.
This is NASCAR, but different. Because, and David Land said this best, like, you need IndyCar experts. You need IndyCar experts. You cannot have Michael Waltrip should not be anywhere near the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Don't let Clint Boyer near there either.
No. Well, they need to be in Charlotte. Fox doesn't have Charlotte. They need to not be there. Lock them in a basement. I don't care what you
find the old Hollywood hotel and do not open the door.
Do not let them go to IMS. Because we need people. What's Jan Vikas doing? What's he doing?
Oh my God. I haven't heard that name in years.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. That would be so awesome.
Regarding the booth, my concern is that it's going to be Jamie Little, Connor Daly, who I think is actually not that bad.
Connor would be awesome.
And
he's gonna
like
be
Paul Tracy would come back or something. That's what I think's going to happen. Like, I'm not even kidding. Maybe James Hinchcliffe will come back as well instead. That'd be cool.
Thank God we're going to the track.
But yeah, the Indy 500 will be there.
Just won't watch any other race that year.
So if that happened, Jackson, that trio, how would you feel?
Alex, I feel like you're a doomer. You're being a doomer.
So
I feel like it's likely.
No,
at least the Jamie Little part.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be Jamie Little. Dog.
I think they know. They know.
Who's the guy calling Xfinity right now? That's
Adam Alexander.
Adam Alexander, right? And I'm like 90% sure he's a Hoosier. He's an Indiana guy.
Is he really?
I'm like 90% sure. That would be like made in the shade then.
You making that?
He was like rumored to be doing IndyCar on Fox, but there was another report that came out that he was going to be doing the NASCAR.
He is from
CW
Indiana.
stuff.
Madison,
there we go.
Indiana. Put him in the booth.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love that.
dude,
I
right?
would put him in the booth. There you go. I love that.
If not him, Alan Bestwick. He's working for the Speedway right now. I think that would be potentially a good guy. I'm not liking the reaction from either of you on that, but I would like
I
Alan
love-
Bestwick back, but
I think
I
'cause just want
love
him in
Alan
NASCAR so
Bestwick.
much.
I love Alan Bestwick, but I don't think he's going to do it.
Oh,
I
that's
think he's
yeah,
happy
Really?
that's kind of the
doing
vibe.
a shorter form thing like SRX. He did that for a bit.
Right.
He does the IMS stuff, which is like
Bro
what,
said
twice,
he's
3 times a
retired.
year.
He's
And
retired.
I just don't see Alan Bestwick wanting to do something like long term. That's why I think if he were to do anything, it'd be like a NASCAR on Amazon stint again.
Yeah,
But he's
like
not
10
even
races.
like
Oh, yeah.
rumored to do that. It's like I mean, IndyCar's only 17 races, maybe, but I don't see
He'd
that.
get a lot of
I'd love it,
breaks.
but I don't see it.
Okay, let's address the other thing. Show of hands from both of
Yes.
you. Either of you guys still have cable?
No.
I mean, I have Hulu Live.
Hulu. Okay.
So yeah, yes, no, I don't. I guess
All
technically.
right.
Yes.
No.
That's cable. It's
So
technically
well.
cable.
Okay. So yeah, unfortunately, and this is not Roger Penske being like, we need these guys to pay $42 a month for IndyCar, but it's just the way that cable and streaming services are going right now, where they're just making cable too and bundling everything together.
Yeah, wait, what the hell is Venu? I've never heard of that.
It's hasn't even
it's
launched yet.
it's
Just
2
got
weeks old.
42 a
announced.
month.
It's 2 weeks old. It is actively being conceived.
What is 42?
Oh, is it? I didn't even know
What?
that. I thought they just announced it. Okay.
What is on there for $42 a month? That's insane.
Fox.
You got
Fox, Warner,
TNT.
and Disney.
And Disney.
Like, isn't
So-
it Disney Plus and ESPN stuff?
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
It's like a
So
bundle. So
let's do
it's
this
cable.
glass half. Let's do this glass half full then. Yeah, it's cable.
Okay,
if
they
you
just
wanna do
reinvented
this-
the wheel. Okay,
It's
got it.
Cable 2. Yes.
Cable 2.
It is
Okay.
literally cable to electric boogaloo. But if you're if you're an F1 and an IndyCar person, boom, that's everything right there for you.
True.
All right.
And half of because Fox still has half a season of Cup, right?
And what, TNT, right? Didn't you
Yeah.
say TNT?
Oh, it's TNT too.
Fox
Yeah.
and, was Fox and
Shit.
TNT? That's half the NASCAR schedule.
If NBC would like get wise and start putting NASCAR on Peacock, all you need is what? Venu and Peacock. That's all you need.
Yep.
All your
Oh,
motorsports.
we didn't talk about this, but also 100 Days being put on Netflix now. The amount of friends in my friend group who have now been like, "Hey, I just started watching 100 Days. You said you're an IndyCar guy, right?" And I'm like, "Welcome."
What?
Like the amount of I've been waiting for this for so long, dude. And Peacock is awesome. Like 50% of the time, I think what they're doing with the Olympics right now is awesome. I do wish that they launched 100 Days on Netflix to a bigger audience, if that was even possible.
Yeah.
Get as big of an audience as possible. Also, we're going back to this identity crisis. We're in a problem right now where everyone kind of just focuses on the Indy 500 and doesn't really treat the championship like a thing. Why I love NASCAR so much is because it feels like two pieces of the same pie, Daytona and the actual like championship.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, when we're trying to make the championship feel like as big of a deal as winning the 500 or an even bigger deal, you can't have a show that's all about your series and cut it at the 500.
Yep.
So
I'm not the
True.
biggest fan of 100 Days to Indy. I think it's a cool concept. I'm glad it's on Netflix. But I agree. I think that's what's missing.
I
And
haven't
that's
even
why-
watched it.
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit. It was good. Did you guys see the NASCAR one?
I did watch the NASCAR one.
I
do
haven't
we think of
watched
that?
that
Forgot
yet.
what
I
it's
just
called.
don't have
Full
I just
Speed?
don't have Netflix.
Stupid
Yeah.
ass name.
Yeah.
Full Speed.
Apparently that was good though. I
liked
with
it.
that one, I had some people reach out to me saying, "Hey, you're a NASCAR fan, blah blah blah." And I watched that. It was good. So but I haven't personally watched that one.
So I think there's a lot that's good about the TV deal, but I think Easily the big thing is, even if this is a train wreck on production, or production's going to be okay and the talent isn't all the way there, the lone fact that every single weekend that there's an IndyCar race, I'm going to be able to flip on my TV and know exactly what channel it's going to be on. Yeah. That's consistency we haven't had ever. That's a consistency that no other racing series except Formula One has right now. One channel, one place, the entire season. That's it. And
for sure.
I think also the fact that, you're now going to have network eyes consistently watching your race week in, week out. I think especially for Indy Next, that's going to help sell your sport to advertisers.
Agree.
Sell it
that is huge for Indy Next.
Team owners. I think you're just going to get so much more eyes, or at least the promise of so much more eyes on your sport. And that's going to hopefully bring in a lot more sponsorship and financial support for this series. I think if we want to work our way up towards, 18, 19, 20 races, going back to ovals, I think this is genuinely the first steps you need to make towards making that happen. So that's why I'm, despite what everyone was saying and how staying on NBC was such like a layup decision, I actually really, really like the decision that they made to go to Fox.
See, I still have my
concerns. I have my reservations.
Yeah, same.
I'm anxious about
totally
it.
Understand what you're saying, but there's just so many red flags. And if the production thing, what you're saying, that's accurate, where it's like in the contract, that's fantastic. And that's what I said when they announced, is like, it sounds like that's the case, but I have concerns. It's going to be the booth that makes or breaks it, I think.
No, 100%. And we could be talking again in January, and Fox is going to be like, please welcome to the booth, Rutledge Wood. And I'm going to be like, what were they doing, guys? and we're going to be back at ground zero. But you guys, I think we're all on the same page here. Like, booth is going to be the thing that makes or breaks this thing.
Yeah, we need IndyCar experts.
For the record, I would not be against Connor Daly in the booth. I do think that's going to be, if he doesn't get like an IndyCar ride, I think he's like near a lock for that.
I'll tell you what,
if he wants it.
Tell me
what. Seeing your guys' episode with Jared Hildebrand, that would be, I think, an interesting guy.
Oh yeah, what's he doing?
He'd be good.
He was trying like 3 years ago to put an IndyCar up Pikes Peak. I don't think that ever happened. I still want to see that happen, but
yeah. Well, let's move on to our next segment here, and we're going to talk about the Joseph Newgarden fan allegations. So, fandom and social media, that's what my problem is, because we had the Team Penske penalty from St. Pete, which came 45 days later, if I recall. It was during that big break, and they didn't, announce the
Sunday
penalty.
at Long Beach.
Yeah, until the next race. I understand the circumstances of that, but I was still so mad. It was like, you waited this long. I know that's not what happened, but still. But then Joseph, of course, is having a really awful year outside of Indianapolis. For me, it's just not been fun to be on social media. And for me, watching races, at least the past like decade, being on Twitter has just been like such a core part of that. And seeing other fans, even journalists, going after your driver is like not going after the character of your driver is just not a healthy environment. And then he goes and does not perform well at a lot of races. It just really wears on it. I think it really wore on me, right? And Zach, I talked to you about that quite a lot. And do you guys think that's what my situation is? Is it the Joseph thing? And I'm just like, grr, IndyCar, bad, pout, like, I want the expert's opinion. What do you think?
So let's unpack this. I think the biggest enemy for being happy, I think naturally is being on Twitter. And that's a mistake that I make regularly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's so bad.
Especially the last couple of years. Yeah.
It's not Marshall Pruitt's quote, but I believe it was someone else in saying that IndyCar fans could find a pile of shit in a field of unicorns. And I feel like that applies to racing fans in general. But I think things are naturally like not as bad as they seem to be. especially when you're looking at the story of Joseph Newgarden in 2024. Yes, he has that thing in St. Pete, but he instantly owns up to it once that drops at Barber, is entirely honest about it. His teammate wins instantly after who was also disqualified. And in the year after, people were saying his 500 win was entirely manufactured because of a red flag. He fights back in one of the hardest green flag runs I've ever seen and lets it hang on the outside of turn 3 against one of the best guys when it comes to car control in the business. Like that's fiction, dude. That is fiction for Joseph Newgarden.
Storybook stuff.
Period.
And regarding how the rest of that season is gone, like we talk about, Indy 500 hangover is a term that exists for a reason. We can't entirely describe it, but it's just like a normal thing where a guy that does the 500 is not necessarily great for the rest of the season. I don't even know off the top of my head the last time someone has won the 500 and a championship in the same year.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Or even like really seriously contend for the championship.
Exactly.
Even. And, you know, to be honest, Joseph, the Indy 500 was the one thing he was missing. He has his 2 championships. I mean, he's been focusing on Indy, the 500 for the last few years. I mean, I don't know if that's why. That's probably not the only reason his performance has declined, but it's certainly can't just be a coincidence.
So let's ask resident Joseph Newgarden fan. Would you have insanely dominant St. Pete opener, cheating scandal, but insane 500 win? Or would you have no 500 win, but still in the fight for a 3rd championship, maybe?
Give me the 500 win. Because people only talk about IndyCar during the 500. So give me the 500 win.
Yeah.
And we still got to fix that. But yeah.
Yeah. But like NASCAR, it's like a different kind of thing. I don't know. NASCAR's weird because Daytona and the championship are 2 different kinds of circuses.
I would not take back the memories I've made at Indianapolis the last 2 years. I was there for both of his wins.
It's all about the friends we made along the way.
Maybe the real Borg Warner trophy was the friends we've made along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
And his little kid, Coda at the bricks.
Yes.
Oh, so cute.
And, bro, that little dude was so confused seeing Dad kiss the bricks. He was like, y'all have told me not to do this. What are you doing?
Goes home and starts licking the floors.
Yeah.
Kids are so funny. Oh my god.
And to kind of wrap this up, I want to also talk about McLaren in general. Just because
Jesus Lord.
Not because that impacts me, just like the look they give to the series, I feel like is not.
I feel like no one talks about that or conceptualizes like how it makes IndyCar look so like ridiculous. The fact that they like. Yeah, go ahead.
This never happened like
ever
5 years ago. This never happened ever.
Well, and when did they join?
Oh. Hey yo! Wait a minute!
So we got a lot of dominoes that have fallen in the past. It's really been the last 2 years because and you could say, oh, they've punted a lot of drivers, and I mean it's a like this. I'm talking like early era McLaren SP when they were still called that. Like Oliver Askew. And some of the guys that have been through this program, like I think Fro got a fair amount of time. Askew had a concussion. And I think Askew was still like a maybe, should have been given more time. He definitely deserved a seat in IndyCar 100%.
Oh yeah.
But I think 100% it's all been since the Palou, Ganassi, McLaren, whereas Oscar Piastri in this situation for some reason, like that whole incident, we're still kind of suffering from the consequences of that. And it is kind of funny that Zack's saying this is basically all his fault. It's all Palou's fault. It's kind of funny.
McLaren's just in their reputation era. They're like, oh, so contracts don't matter? Okay. All right. Okay.
So
we'll play by those rules.
Let me be devil's advocate a little bit, because it's not like Theo Porcher being like, you're going to be an IndyCar driver. Psych, you're homeless. because they're still paying him. They're still paying him for the rest of the season. It's just, you know,
Wait a minute, he's
it's
got a
more-
good gig.
he's got a
just
great
sitting
gig.
at
No,
home.
you can chill at home for a weekend and make the
Wait a
same level of
minute.
money if you were at the track racing.
McLaren.
And then
Hello?
if Rossi, yeah, if Rossi breaks his thumb, you can do planes, trains, and automobiles, and you can get in there, dog. But I think it's
Get me in there. I'm holding up a steering wheel for our audio listeners.
McLaren Shadow is not affiliated with Aero McLaren SP. It's their esports team. I'm so off the rails now. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. This is wild.
Well, just another note about social media. The whole reaction to like the David Malukas stuff was
my
insane
god.
to me.
I hate young people. I'm such a boomer. These young people that have watched maybe 2 years of racing and they're such David Malukas
old man
fans.
yells at cloud times 5,000. No, this is wild.
They're so Alex was about to get into this, but I'm going to get into it more unhinged. It's like we were so upset about the David Malukas thing, and I got a lot of flack when I didn't criticize David. I just said David Malukas has to accept the responsibility for this, right?
Oh,
that's up for
100%.
debate, right? But then then Tom Blomqvist gets kicked out of his ride in a similar manner. Well, not really.
You want me to try breaking that down in like 5 seconds for you?
What?
Probably going to be okay. I put good money that he's going to be back in a prototype for Shank next year.
Yeah.
I think that was an
yeah,
experiment
definitely.
from day one. There's no hard feelings there from what I've seen.
Right. It's just funny how, Malukas gets that ride based off someone else losing their ride when Dave Malukas fans were very upset that it's just very cute
and
funny.
Not a single peep when Blomqvist was dropped.
No.
It was just, oh my god, little Dave's back. Yay! It's like, y'all are hypocrites. Come on. Anyway,
We're getting
I don't
canceled.
care.
So first of all,
just
Tom Blomqvist, got to interview him at Long Beach. Super, super nice guy.
Him. He's great.
Does not have the same level of online presence / outreach to this generation of drivers as Chicago Dave has. And I came into it super stoked because we're seeing guys from IMSA come over and try IndyCar, and I'm like, is the sports car to open wheel pipeline like a real thing? And I don't think so. But it was cool to see that experiment. So I think that's a big part of it. And regarding Dave himself addressing all this, I feel like the past 2 weeks have been proof that I think everyone's kind of over it, whether it was like the Spider-Man photo at Toronto with him and all the McLaren.
Oh yeah.
That was so cool. And
it was.
It's got, I looked for it this morning, but I think it got taken down. It was like, what was one thing that really scares you as an IndyCar fan? And Dave just posted a photo of a mountain bike. I'm like 90% sure it might be out there somewhere still. I'm not sure, but
nice.
It feels like he's gotten over it and everyone else has kind of gotten over it for now. So
yeah. Well, with that, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about with you guys. But I guess we'll wrap it up with, what do we want to see from IndyCar in the future?
That's because I don't know.
And what would make us more optimistic about the series? And I think for me, I'll start with this, is that I think the series needs to show that they are trying to listen to their fans. Because sometimes it feels they're kind of just, whenever we say something, just like falling on deaf ears. And I'm not talking about like the TV contract stuff. Like that's not something fans should be making a decision on, like that's a business sort of decision. But sometimes it just feels like, hey, can you adjust the schedule? That'd be very cool. And then, it probably through TV as well, right? It does. But it's just like, this has been a problem for around a decade, and we've been.
It's like every single year, they're like, we're looking to add more ovals.
Yeah,
well, look harder. I don't know. You gotta look a little harder.
Could I make the argument that from like at least from a social media admin side, I feel like the IndyCar relationship with its fan base is better than any other racing series on the planet. I'd argue
it's way better than it was, because it was non-existent.
Oh no, 100%.
I don't know if it's the best of all motorsport. I mean,
I don't even know what
IMSA doesn't really have a social media presence, but I mean, IndyCar interacts with its fans. I see what you're
And
saying.
I know it doesn't count, but like Ryan DaCosta cooks for NBC Sports. You guys know that.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just it's cool to see that kind of fan series interaction.
So I guess my summation of my point is like when they put out that survey a couple years ago, whenever that was, it was like,
oh my gosh,
we want to hear from our fans. What do you think? I felt really optimistic, but then it just feels like everything I put in there, like the opposite has kind of happened. And that maybe I was in the minority. I don't know. But it just kind of like more communication with fans, I think would be nice. It's just like the series isn't in a great spot. TV ratings are not great outside of the 500. You kind of need to talk to your fan base that you have to kind of be like, hey, we want to hear from you because you're still here for some reason. Like, why? How do we get more people and everything? I think for me, that's just more communication. Zach, what do you think? You got anything?
I don't know exactly what I'm looking for because I could say more oval races, but then there's attendance problems. You know what I mean? It just feels like this unsolvable puzzle for me. What to do with the IndyCar series? How to make it on par with NASCAR? Or, well, really, that's what I want because I'm more into NASCAR than Formula One. I want it to be kind of an alternate, not an alternative to NASCAR, but it should be just as big of a deal because I mean, it's got the Indianapolis 500, right? It's a huge deal. I just want that energy to get matched throughout the calendar, you know, or at least kind of it needs to represent, the series needs to represent what the Indianapolis 500 means, and having a series based off that kind of racing, I feel like that doesn't exist. I feel like it's just the Indy 500 and the IndyCar series is a separate thing. They need to feel like they're more together, you know.
Right.
I agree.
So I'll add on that, Zach, and I'll finish where I kind of started with the history lesson and saying that essentially like IndyCar is just over 10 years old because you know, before then, like the only thing that's consistently been there is the 500, and everything else that's happened around it, even before the split, has changed ownership and management so much. You went from AAA to USAC to CART, and then there was the split, and now it's technically the IRL again, but not really. So it's the lamest answer I can give you that's true is just it's going to take time, and prestige will kind of build naturally because you're going to be able to say that you were following in the footsteps of guys like Scott Dixon, Will Power, Simon Pagenaud, Alex Palou. You'll be able to eventually do that over time. But I think in the short term, I mean, we need more OEM support, like instantly. I think unfortunately, even NASCAR has been fighting the sacred fourth OEM forever. We technically had three. I mentioned that earlier. Lotus was so slow in 2012. They dropped out of the 500 and never came back. And I feel like that, even still, that maybe has scared new manufacturers from dipping their toe in the water just because it's a money pit. And I think also the problem is what audience are you selling to when you're saying we have an IndyCar engine program? It's obviously cool for the fans, but what are you making with that? And what are you like, what's the genuine benefit for OEMs to come into your sport? So I think OEM appeal is going to be a two-way street because it will bring in new manufacturers. And that alone, I think will like saying like, oh damn, we got Porsche in the Indy 500 now, or we got Hyundai. I got an Elantra. We got Hyundai in the 500. Like
the stuff they talk, like Le Mans has that kind of conversation, like manufacturers coming back into the overall the top category, right? There's always conversations about that, so I can kind of see, and honestly, that would also bring more prestige to the Indy 500 as well, right? Like it would kind of bring it up another level.
I can give you the laziest answer, and that is literally grab every GTP car right now, chop off the fenders, and be like, "This is a new Indy car."
Why
and then
not?
You instantly have you have aero protection. You have aero protection. You have OEM. You have like what 8 OEMs going on, 9 manufacturers. So many different engine types, engine notes.
It'd be fun.
So
I feel like that is what IndyCar needs. Something like that.
Well,
because right now it's just so
Let's take it back a little bit. I think the real answer is we need just a new we need a new chassis, a new appearance, something that is like instantly identifiable as like that is an Indy car. That's not maybe an F1 car. This is an Indy car.
Certainly not a NASCAR.
It's definitely not a NASCAR.
These things go much faster than NASCAR.
They go real fast than that, son. Okay. But I think this is another great point Jair Hildebrand made. Like, it needs to scare the crap and amaze people who are watching. Like, show people that this is not like what it should not look or sound like something that a normal person would drive. It needs to be like an all-sensory experience. And the hybrid's done a great job of not getting in the way of the engine noise. So if you make a new Indy car that could potentially bring support to new manufacturers, might be kind of a GTP car with the fenders ripped off, and just looks and sounds freaking awesome, I think you're gonna have some good ingredients for growth and, you know, help us bring the fight to NASCAR, I guess.
Yeah. I like that, Jackson. And thank you, Jackson, for joining us. This was a really fun conversation. I've been looking forward to this. This has been
thank you guys so much for having me. If I can have a soapbox moment for like 2 seconds.
Go
like
ahead.
The goal, I've been with Grid, but before that, and I'm still working for my own branch of social work, Outlap. And that's been, you know, the whole goal has been to bring new people into racing and kind of dumbing it down for, you know, everyday people, whether they're watching, you know, normal stickball sports or they don't care about sports at all. And it's just kind of, you know, creating and, you know, catering to a community. And, you know, if you would tell me like 5-6 years ago, as someone who's not a part of the community you guys are in, but someone who supported it, that there's not just going to be that presence, it's going to be consistently growing, I wouldn't have believed you. But you guys have done such a fantastic job of not just proving that there are people out there that watch, support, participate in racing, but you guys are doing a great job in growing it. And that's an inspiration for me in the battle I'm doing on a different front. But it's been so awesome to be on the show. Been so awesome to be with you guys. And hopefully I can come back again sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's awesome. Oh, yeah, we will.
Yeah, of course.
We'll just pretend you're Jackson Todd.
It's fine. You're our
exactly. We went, what was it? Hour and 2 minutes without making a Jackson Todd reference. I'll take that. No, that's awesome.
If your name is Jackson out there, hit us up.
We're looking for more Jacksons.
We need more Jacksons.
The GRP Jackson Con. We just get like as many racing Jacksons as possible.
The Jack Con. The Jack Con.
Oh my God.
Maybe.
Love it.
We'll see.
Oh.
And yeah, as Jackson said, you can find him on Outlap Media and Grid Network. And Jackson, where can people find you on socials?
Mostly on Insta at jackson.lambros. Sometimes very rarely I make tweets. I mostly just lurk on, I think it's also at jackson.lambros. I don't even remember my own handle. But yeah, again, been absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you boys for having me.
Of course. And with that, Zach, we'll kind of wrap up here. We do have a nice comment from our previous episode. This is from Aaron Peterson on YouTube. They said, not a show I thought I needed, but it's safe to say I'm a gay racing podcast fan. Thanks, Aaron. That's so nice of you.
There we go.
I love being needed.
Yeah. And
that really fills my cup.
Yeah, our cup of tea. We still need to get like teacups.
I know.
Dude, that would be such good merch.
Oh, we gotta make merch.
Would. We do.
If only our designer would get to work on it.
Yeah. Who's that?
Oh,
Zack.
gotcha. Okay.
He's going back to work. His day job started again. I'm busy.
But you can, if you want us to read your comment, you can leave a nice comment on YouTube or on a 5-star Apple review. You can also leave a 5-star review on a Spotify. Like and subscribe on YouTube. We are getting closer to 300 subscribers on YouTube. We surpassed 400 on TikTok. We're also on TikTok at Gay Racing Pod. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/gayracingpod. We also do still have our discount code for at Home Field Apparel, GRP217. Zach's wearing
so sick.
This shirt is so sick. I love this. And it's so comfy.
You get 15% off your first purchase over there. Again, code
like a nice
GRP217. And you can follow us on socials at Gay Racing Pod, at Dreamy Zack Racing, and at Newgaden.
To be fair, though, I did design a bunch of iRacing, Gay Racing
You
podcast
did.
cars.
Yeah.
Our advertising department is doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made a lot of cool cars, though.
Yeah.
Those are cool.
People race.
Look at that. Is that on Trading Paints? I haven't seen that.
It's on Trading Paints. Just look up. Well, you'll find it. It's easy.
And you've gotten people to be like, "Oh my gosh, is that a podcast? Where can I find it?" Blah blah blah. Like, that's cool.
Hell yeah.
Did Zack freeze?
Oh, he did. See, he froze earlier, and now it's your turn.
Oh no.
To be a witness. Oh Lord. No, you were out for like 30 seconds earlier. Is he doing like the whole outro right now? That would be wild if he is.
I mean, he's the one that's recording. So I don't know what he's doing.
We're probably fine.
I would assume so.
How's your day?
It's been good. I'm tired, but I'm good.
Beautiful.
I wonder if his internet went out. It's done like that a time or two.
Oh,
he gone. So it's still recording. So Zach's gonna have to edit this a bit. He's gonna be so mad. But yeah, if Zach didn't do the outro, I'll do it real quick. So thank you guys for watching or listening. If you're on YouTube or if you're listening on a podcast platform, thanks for checking out the episode, and we will see you guys next time. Goodbye. And I cannot end it